Russian cases are the most frustrating part of Russian grammar. I struggled with it, and I know lots of you also struggle with it. That's why in this video, I want to share with you why learning Russian cases in the beginning is useless, the things you should know before you start working with the Russian cases, and my methodical approach to learning the Russian cases quickly. Давайте начнем. Let me start with explaining why learning the Russian cases is useless in the beginning. That's because in order to use a case, you need to have a basic amount of vocabulary of nouns that you can apply it to. If you only know 50 to 100 nouns, it really doesn't make sense to start learning the cases because you're much better off learning much more nouns until you get to a bigger size of words that you know, and then learn the cases, because then you can immediately apply it to everything. For example, you know the words for I read and book, я читаю and книга. It's much more useful in the beginning stages to learn words like я пишу, I am writing, газета, статья, and other things that you can read. Like, first focus on upgrading your vocabulary and then focus on the cases. By the way, if you want to quickly upgrade your vocabulary, one of the best ways to do it is by using cognates. Cognates are words that are the same in Russian as in English, like effect, situation, ситуация, constitution, конституция, and words like that. I created a list of 750 Russian English cognates that you can use to quickly upgrade your Russian vocabulary. You can download them below in the link in the description for free. I don't know if this list will be online forever, so I recommend you download it today. So the second reason why learning Russian cases in the beginning isn't really useful is because it can be so incredibly demotivating. Let me tell you a short story of a friend of mine with a Russian-speaking wife here in the Netherlands. He wanted to learn Russian for her and to communicate better with her family, so he decided to go to Russian classes. And he's a smart guy, so I assumed he would be fine. Now, I spoke to him a couple weeks after he went to the first class, and he explained to me that in the first class, the teacher told him about all the Russian cases, that there are 4 noun genders, 6 cases, so that's 4 times 6, 24 different combinations of noun endings that he needs to remember. And then she added, oh, there are also, for each combination, there's an adjective that you'll need to know. So that makes 48 different noun adjective case combination. Oh, by the way, you also need to understand which case to use in which situation, and remember them while speaking. So he was like, really, do I need to know all this? And after a couple weeks of classes, he just quit. And it's such a shame because he would have been able to get to a good level of Russian if he would have taken a more gradual approach. So it's don't spend time on Russian cases in the beginning because you have much better things to focus on. Okay, so what should you know before you start learning Russian cases? I recommend you know at least a couple hundred, let's say 3, 4, maybe 500 common Russian words and nouns before you start with the Russian cases. The reason why I explained earlier is because you need to know, like, this is much easier for communication. Like, it doesn't matter if you say cases incorrectly. Я читаю книга, it's wrong, should be я читаю книгу, but people will understand that you mean that you're reading a book. At the beginning stages, cases are not necessary to explain a specific function of a word in a sentence. It's much better to just learn a lot of words and then just throw them in there without grammar, and people will understand what you mean 99% of the time. Only later, when your sentences become more complicated, should you start incorporating cases. Okay, so next, it's a great thing to learn, I would say, you have to know the noun genders. There's no use in trying to learn a prepositional case if you don't understand the difference between a masculine and a feminine noun. So learn what a masculine, feminine, neuter, and plural noun is and how to recognize them. Then it's also great if you have basic knowledge of the verbs in past, and future tense. You don't need to specifically work on like the difference between perfective, imperfective case, but it's good if you know how to conjugate, like я работаю, ты работаешь, вы работаете, он работает, они работают, мы работаем. And if you can say the same thing in the past, like мы работали, я работал, она работала. So that you know these things. And if you can say it in the future, я буду работать, он будет работать, мы будем работать. That's also great. And because these things are necessary to create a sentence, otherwise you cannot indicate who is doing what. Okay, so you know common words, you understand noun genders, and you understand basic verb conjugation. What should you do next? Well, I recommend you take a methodical approach to learning the Russian cases. And this is something lots of people don't do. What I see is that lots of people are watching random YouTube videos, do 1 or 2 apps, maybe have signed up for some classes or some courses, but there's no general structure in here. It's all just, oh, well, there's a lesson today about the genitive case, and then follow that. It's much better to take the cases one by one and focus on understanding them, like let's say to 80%, and then continuing. And it's also good to first focus on the singular cases without adjectives. So start with, here's kind of like the case ladder that I recommend. Start with accusative, prepositional, genitive, dative, instrumental. Maybe dative and instrumental can be the other way around. And then learn the plural versions afterwards with the same ladder, and then work on the adjectives. Now, you can play around a little bit, but this would be the general structure, how I would recommend it. For example, you could do the accusative adjective directly after learning the accusative singular because it's so similar. Like the 2 best ways that I found for myself and for other students have to learn grammar are either following classes or tutors or audio lessons. Audio lessons are just recorded classes. And the good thing is that they're pre-recorded, and about the classes as well, that they're pre-thought of, which means that they use a gradual approach. So you're not getting overwhelmed. You learn one thing, if it's a good course class or audio course, you learn one thing, you implement it, and then you slowly continue on to the next things. Now, those are the 2 main things to learn the theoretical side of grammar. But what you want to do, you don't want to just do the theoretical side, because you want to implement it in real life as well. Because otherwise, you could learn all the cases and when to say them. But if you've never practiced them, you're going to end up like читаю русских газету or something like that. You're just going to mess them all up. So it just takes time for practice. The best way to do this is to either have someone in real life that you can talk to, or if you don't have that, either find someone you can talk to online. All right, so then there are 2 great support activities that I highly recommend you also do to better integrate the cases, to drill down the cases so that you say them correctly at the right point, and that that they just become subconsciously, that you say them subconsciously well. And those are watching series or movies in Russian and reading simple text, or difficult text if you can do that. The reason why is because you hear and read the correct usage of the cases, when to use them, how to use them, and this will make it so much easier for you to subconsciously say them correctly when you are having a conversation in Russian. Thank you very much for watching. Спасибо вам огромное за просмотр и желаю вам удачи с изучением русского языка. Пока!